What's up, guys? Here with this week's Q&A. I got some really good questions this week. I'm going to try to get to as many as I can, so speed running this intro. Thank you. Should a person who can't afford animal protein give up bodybuilding? No. Is protein that important for muscle building that if you don't get the optimum about all the training is useless? No. Get in what you can, whatever quality proteins that you can get in. I know you said you couldn't get animal protein, so if you can get, tofu, tempeh, lentils are some big ones. Get in what you can. But as far as like when you're in a maintenance phase or a bulking phase, like adding muscle, the protein, having a high amount of protein isn't really as important as when you're cutting weight. So you're going to be way better off still training and maybe not getting as much protein as you think you can get in than not training altogether. Your training is not going to be wasted. I promise you that. What food is underrated in how anabolic it is? I think cheeses. Cheese is delicious, of course, but it doesn't get talked about much as an anabolic food. Something like cottage cheese in particular. If you look at cheese, there's fat, there's carbs, there's protein, and what really sets it off is the sodium content. A lot of cheeses have pretty high sodium content, so you're getting all of the major macronutrients in pretty good levels to give you energy and build muscle, etc. And the sodium. Sodium is anabolic as fuck. Would this be a viable training method? Same sets and rep workout to workout, but the exercises are rotated. So day one, competition movement. Day two, self-limiting variation. Day three, be overload. Yes, that is perfectly viable. What is the meaning of life? I don't know. Just lift weights and smash. Don't take that seriously. Training routine for someone who gets sick pretty often. Progressively overload your vitamin C. I don't know, man. I would, train hard when you're not sick, and when you are sick, ease off it a little bit. If healthy foods, quote unquote, mostly vegetables, make you bloated and shit your brains out because of fiber, etc., is it still good for you? Feel obligated to eat them for health reasons, but I hate them. It's it's a balancing act. I don't know how much vegetables you're eating all at once. Oh well, you're saying 2 servings a day. Never mind, I just looked into it. Man, I would, in your specific case, maybe look at alternatives for getting those micronutrients in and the fiber in. We're all different in some capacity. I'm never gonna sit here and say vegetables are bad, because generally speaking, they're pretty fucking great. But in your case, maybe you've got to self experiment and find what you're compatible with. How to know if the numbers you've programmed for yourself to hit are sensible? Well, look back at your progression. Like, does it fall in line with your recent progression? If yes, then yeah, it's probably pretty sensible. If you're super advanced, you're probably not asking this question, but you got to know that progress is going to slow down at some point for all of us. So keep that in mind. But if you've been taking notes or have training logs, you should be able to look back at those and what your training was and what numbers you hit, and be able to have some semblance of what you're looking to hit going forward is sensible. Like, don't sit here and say, "Oh, I'm going to put 100 pounds on my bench over the next month," because that's not sensible. But you know what I'm saying. You talked about Tank Abbott in a previous video. Do you think you could have gotten 600 benching the way he did? Are you an MMA fan? Uh, Maybe. Like, my 550 bench, it wasn't as dramatic as his, but it was very much heaved. If I were to have bulked a little further, if I could have maintained that a little bit, possibly. But it's speculation at best. As far as MMA fan, I'm a super casual these days. Like, I don't keep up and follow with who's who very much. I check some highlights every now and then. I was back in the Pride days, the early, like, the Ultimate Fighter days. I followed along pretty closely back then, but these days, not quite as much. Why Larsen Press if you also OHP incline behind the neck, etc., on top of back training style points? No, I I don't know if you're asking me personally, but me personally, I Larsen Press because it transfers to my bench. And it's much better for that than any of those other things you mentioned. Why someone else would, you get more overload out of Larsen Press than any of those things that you mentioned. Um, but I'm not a bodybuilder and I'm not doing it for bodybuilding reasons. I don't know why exactly you asked for it. But there's certainly some reasoning within that logic as well. Can you compare strength and hypertrophy gain on high frequency comp benching, i.e., comp benching 4 times a week, and high frequency on variations, one comp, one incline, one dumbbell? Yeah, so if you're just specifically doing comp bench 4 times a week, whatever hypertrophy gains you're going to see are going to be strictly related to that style of benching, which, for direct carryover to that style of benching is going to be the best. Which, if you're getting ready to go to an in-season block, I would definitely look at something like that. Whereas the variations, you're going to build some of those smaller supporting muscles in conjunction with that one comp bench a day. So that's something that would be more of a quote unquote off season. Both are good things to do. Just depends upon where you're at. Why do you think most lifters are trapped in novice purgatory? People get to where they do the same thing over and over, and you're not going to progress doing the same thing over and over. You'll see them come in, they'll hit the same set, same reps, same weights every time they're in the gym, and that's why they're not going to progress anymore. David Ricks ? Honest question. I don't know what you're asking there, but David Ricks is a god amongst men. Maybe that answers your question. I don't know. My boy started going to the gym, but he always does upper body. Any tips on how to get him to do legs as well? We don't train at the same time. Shame him. Call him a little fucking bitch. Tell him to man the fuck up and quit being a pussy. Peace!